Hello, this is Michael Tracy, and I'll provide a brief response to Krakauer's first 3 videos that he just released. No doubt more videos will be out by the time you watch this, so this will just be a high-level overview. At a basic level, every time Krakauer tells the story, it changes. There were his initial interviews with Outside Online, in which he has now admitted he inadvertently made some false statements. There was then his Outside magazine article in 1996, which he has also said contains numerous errors. There was his 1997 book, which was contradicted by the photos and captions of those photos in the 1998 illustrated edition, and his 1999 postscript made even more revisions. His 1997 presentation on PBS has facts significantly different from his book. In 2016, he is quoted as saying he, quote, publicly falsified the story. Now, in 2025, he is making significant revisions to the factual element of his books while claiming to debunk the videos that pointed out that those factual statements were indeed incorrect. But fortunately, every time a new photo is released, it confirms what actually happened that day, and that is rarely consistent with any of Krakauer's multiple different versions. In his recent video, Krakauer released this photo taken by him on the initial traverse between South Summit and the Hillary Step. Viewers may recall my discussion of his interview in which he claimed some mountain madness people were crowding him on that section. This is Krakauer. Anatoly Neal, Andy Harris, and I were out in front fixing rope. I assumed that we'd fix the rope and the clients, would all wait at South Gold. He means South Summit. But at some point soon after we started fixing rope, the more eager and impatient clients were right on my butt, right behind me. As soon as the rope was fixed, they were right there. The clients, I guess they were. So it was all Scott's clients. Some of them were straggling and some were right there. Of course, Krakauer never fixed a rope, nor did anyone fix a rope on that traverse. But Krakauer did mention that Bukrev, Beidelman, and Harris were out in front, and some unknown person was on his butt. He claims this was a Mountain Madness client. But the photo he released solved the mystery. It was Mike Groom. As Krakauer is the one that took the photo, it is not clear why he didn't remember taking it, nor was Krakauer busy fixing ropes. He was busy taking photographs. If Krakauer wants to truly tell the story of what happened, he can release all of his photos from that day, and the truth will be apparent for all to see. But rather than releasing all the photographs, Krakauer chooses to talk and write, apparently believing that 1,000 words are indeed worth a picture. Although his videos are directed at me, I am by no means the only one questioning Krakauer's account. The following is from a recent presentation at Merton College at Oxford. That's Andrew Irvin's college, and this was part of the Centennial Program for Mallory and Irvin. This is Professor Julie Rock, and I have used her book, False Summit, in a past video, and will be using some of her research from this presentation in some upcoming videos on Mallory and Irvin. This segment is just where she talks about Krakauer, and I will link to the full presentation in the description.
I believe you should understand the book as a trauma narrative, which I think it is. I think he went through an enormous amount of stress and problems that didn't leave him. He has admitted as much, but it's not journalism. Some things that are in that book, he did not report what people told him. And that is a fact. And so if you want me to talk more about it, I will, but otherwise I will leave you wanting to know more about that.
So unfortunately, they didn't want to get into that discussion as they were focusing on 1924, but my criticism of Krakauer is hardly the only one out there. Now, responding to Krakauer, I am fully aware of the misdirection technique he used so well against Bukrev. It turned into a debate about whether there was one conversation with Scott Fisher or 2 conversations, which was entirely irrelevant to anything that happened that day. I stay away from the Bukrev-Krakauer debate because it was nothing but misdirection. Krakauer's videos are full of name-calling and swearing. For me, this is like snow off a Yeti's back, and I won't respond to statements that don't require a response. I will point out the small amount of progress that Krakauer's videos are making in finding out what really happened in 1996. Although he frames the videos as debunking my claims, if you listen to what he actually says, he confirms all of the main factual points of my videos. For any analysis, there are 2 components: the factual basis, that is the who, what, when, where, that type of information. And then there is the analysis of those facts. This is commonly referred to as opinion. Turning to the first video, analysis of Scott Fisher's photo from South Summit, that video looks at this photo from Scott Fisher to see what it tells us about the climb. That video is by far the most popular of my 1996 video series. The video makes 3 main points. The first 2 are factual, and the third is analysis or opinion. The first is, that is Sandy Pittman on the Hillary Step. That is a factual statement that can be confirmed to be either true or false. The second is that Krakauer's claim to have been at the base of the Hillary step at 1 p.m. was false. That is also a factual statement that can be confirmed to either be correct or incorrect. And finally, there is the analysis that the delays on the Hillary step were primarily caused by Jasko Nama's slow ascent of the step. That is an opinion, and the video explains how I used the various facts to reach that opinion. The initial public response to that video was hostility and disbelief. People could not believe that that was Sandy Pittman on the Hillary step, the closest guide on her team 40 feet above and the closest Sherpa 40 feet below. Even after people reviewed and discussed the video, there were numerous comments such as this one. Hey Michael, I just ran into a person under another YouTube channel claiming that Beidelman personally said that the person in yellow on the central photo you've been using here was not Sandy Pittman but Mike Groom. Is it beyond any reasonable doubt clear to you who is in this photo, and why is that? It was used as an example of how you were supposedly presenting things as established fact that were not facts at all. Now, that is a perfectly legitimate question, and I encourage all my viewers to question content on the internet, including my own. Now, Krakauer has confirmed in his video that is indeed Sandy Pittman. So when Krakauer and I agree on some factual element, I will take it largely as a settled issue and won't spend a lot of time discussing why it is true. Krakauer also confirmed that the statement that he was at the base of the Hillary step at 1 p.m. was false. I spent a good amount of time in the video analyzing climb times and the photo and came to the conclusion that the following statement made in his book was false. This is where he said he was, quote, nervously studying my watch and wondered whether he might have run out of oxygen. And then at the end, he says, but now it was already after 1 and I was beginning to have serious doubts. I discussed that in length in the video. Now, Krakauer has admitted that statement is false, that it was after 1 p.m. He now states that he started ascending the step at 12:30. He also confirms that Bukrev fixed the ropes in just 20 minutes, which I do not consider to be a slow process nor painstaking. Krakauer also corrects the following passage. Half an hour above South Summit, I arrived at the foot of the Hillary step. That is no longer 30 minutes, but is now just 20 minutes. And before you say, oh, that's just 10 minutes, the time is important to a calculation Krakauer is performing about how long he waited at South Summit. So the 10-minute difference is a big deal to Krakauer, and it is different from the time he used in his supposedly fact-checked book. Now, Krakauer's calculation does show that he was delayed by 70 minutes waiting for fixed ropes at South Summit. No doubt this greatly inconvenienced Jon Krakauer. Krakauer does not explain why, when he, Groom, and Harris were all sitting at South Summit, they simply didn't go and fix the ropes. Beidelman and Bukrev would not fix the rope because none of their clients were ready to ascend, as they all were waiting on their client's oxygen. So Krakauer waited 70 minutes. Most of the climbers were much slower than Krakauer and didn't get to South Summit until much later, and once there, they all waited for their oxygen. Krakauer states, without any evidence, that the oxygen-carrying Sherpas were slowed because of some delay in fixed ropes below South Summit. But this is contradicted by Lou Koschitzky's account, who was climbing in the rear and reported no delays because of fixed ropes. Koschitzky is clear that people were moving slow because they were slow, not because they were waiting on fixed ropes. Lou Koschitzky never once waited on a single fixed rope, didn't wait on anyone else waiting on a fixed rope, and didn't enter any bottleneck of climbers at any time. He did note some people far above him stopping, and he thought they might be taking a break, but they were well above him, and he never encountered a delay because of other people stopping. He wrote that he was climbing close to Rob Hall up until shortly below South Summit when Rob got a radio call. Scott Fisher was behind Koschitzky, and Doug Hansen was also close to Rob Hall. So that means neither Rob Hall, Scott Fisher, nor Doug Hansen ever waited once on a rope to be fixed below South Summit, never once waited on other people below South Summit, never once entered any bottleneck below South Summit, never once were slowed by climbers above them while below South Summit. The only time Koschitzky said anything about the fixed ropes below South Summit is when he noted, the terrain was steeper, but not a delayed choke point and not technically difficult. I did not see any need to take the time to fix new rope in this area. That account is from Lou Koschitzky, who personally witnessed the situation. Jon Krakauer was on the other side of South Summit and could not see any of the climbers below South Summit during the time he claims the oxygen-carrying Sherpa were all stuck in some bottleneck. Now, I can't understand why Jon Krakauer is personally upset that he had to wait at South Summit. A client should never have to wait 70 minutes for fixed ropes, and hopefully he got his money back. However, Krakauer being upset is different from something being a factor that affected the disaster. All the fast climbers, Krakauer, Beitelman, Adams, Schoening, Bukrev, none of them caused a single minute of delay to any other person. While I can understand why Krakauer is upset that not only did he have to wait at South Summit, but he also had to wait to descend the Hillary step, that was a situation that was unique to the fast climbers, all of whom made it back alive except Andy Harris, and Andy Harris's situation is completely different and was caused by Doug Hansen and Rob Hall and the oxygen situation. Piecing things together, we now have the following facts that we all agree on. Bukrev, Beitelman, and the others headed out from South Summit at noon. By 12:30, they had traversed over to the Hillary step, Bukrev had climbed it and fixed the ropes on it, and Krakauer was on his way up. Groom remained below the step and is seen in this photo at its base at 1 p.m. Beitelman, Adams, and Schoening are fixing the ropes just above the Hillary step. The exact sequence of who climbed up after Bukrev is not clear, but not important to this analysis, nor is Krakauer's misdirection about exactly where the top of the Hillary step is. Now, my analysis is that the 20 minutes it took to fix the rope up the Hillary step did not contribute in any meaningful way to the disaster that unfolded. Scott Fisher's photo shows the condition on the step as the final ropes are being fixed. The photo does not show any pileup of climbers on the step. Now, to be sure, there were significant delays at the Hillary step. All those delays took place after this photo was taken, and all accounts agree that Jaakko Namba took a significant amount of time to scale the step, and to a lesser extent, so did Doug Hansen. I completely understand why Krakauer would not say that the delays at the Hillary step were caused by Jaakko Namba. Indeed, in his entire first video, which is about what caused the delays at the Hillary step, he does not mention her name once. In contrast, in the video he is supposedly debunking, I mention her over 18 times in a 37-minute video. Perhaps Jon Krakauer is not the best person to analyze the problems on the climb caused by Jaakko Namba. This is nothing against Jon Krakauer. Anyone in a similar situation would have the exact same issue. But claiming to debunk a video that is primarily about a bottleneck I claim was caused by Jaakko Namba without mentioning Jaakko Namba once is a bit disingenuous. In terms of the problems on the Hillary step, Rob Hall had developed a reputation for having his clients clog up the Hillary step back in 1993. The following is from Elizabeth Hawley and was published in the American Alpine Journal. The Russians complained that the American and New Zealand leaders were making large profits, conducting incompetent clients who they charged US $35,000 each, that this was merely business, and that the American leader was no gentleman in the language he used. A New Zealander, whose commercial expedition caused much of the long delay for others having to wait their turn to ascend the Hillary step, complained of the most frightening time of my life when he was descending the step. Now, there was only one New Zealand team that year, so it is no mystery who it was. In terms of analyzing 1996, my view is that the bottlenecks were much like 1993. In 1993, there were a total of 40 people who reached the summit on May 10th, including Rob Hall, Michael Groom, and Ann Dorje. Unlike 1996, the ropes were already fixed by a previous team, and yet there were reportedly significant delays from Rob Hall's extremely small summit team allegedly clogging up the Hillary step. Of course, Krakauer disagrees with my analysis about 1996 and presents it as me being wrong. No doubt this scores major points with his cult-like fan base, but unfortunately for his fan, Krakauer ends up agreeing with me far more than he disagrees. As a note, Luke Koschitzky's After the Wind also discusses the bottlenecks in 1993. There is a clear distinction between factual statements and opinion. Krakauer's factual statements that he was below the Hillary step at 1 p.m. was wrong. He has offered no explanation about how his book, which he claimed was thoroughly fact-checked, missed such an obvious mistake as it would be unrealistic to climb from the base of the Hillary step to the summit in just 12 minutes. The bulk of the rest of Krakauer's criticism in his first video is just a disagreement about the impact of certain factors. My list of major factors are the storm, Doug Hansen not being sent back, oxygen bottle theft or confusion. There was clearly something wrong on South Summit, whether it was simply confusion or whether the bottles were stolen. There was definitely a problem with the oxygen. The stunt on the summit, delays at the Hillary step due to slow climbers, carbon monoxide poisoning, Pemba being told to stay at South Col, Adventure Consultants Sherpas overloaded, Adventure Consultants leaving first before Mountain Madness, the Taiwanese going even on May 10th, and finally, delays due to ropes not being fixed. You can conduct your own analysis and move the delays due to ropes not being fixed further up on the list. You may even put it at the top, but that is just your opinion, and whether I would agree with it or not would depend on how well you support it with factual analysis. But it would certainly not call you a liar because you analyzed the same set of facts differently than I did, or if you brought in additional facts that you thought were important. As Krakauer continues to modify his factual statements, we will just have to wait until he has his final answer so we can conduct the analysis of what really happened.